Mr. Secretary, if I could just start with you. I asked you earlier this year if you agreed with the National Defense Strategy assessment that the U.S. military needs to be postured, and here's the quote, to deter and prevent a fait accompli by an agile, opportunistic adversary. You responded to me in writing, which I appreciated, and I appreciated the response you gave, which was, you said, I'm quoting you now, yes, I agree with the Commission's finding. A combat credible, forward deterrent posture is instrumental to our ability to deter and, if necessary, deny a fait accompli scenario. I assume you still agree with that.
I do, Senator.
Very good. And would you also agree then, I assume that this would apply to our ability to maintain and maintain the ability to defeat a Chinese fait accompli against Taiwan. Is that accurate?
That is accurate, Senator. I think nobody wants to see a unilateral change of the status quo with respect to Taiwan. You've heard us say that we are committed to helping Taiwan defend itself in accordance with the Taiwan Relations Act, the 3 communiques and the 6 assurances. And so our position hasn't changed in that regard, and we'll continue to help them develop the capability to.
General Milley, if I could just get you on this as well, would you agree that the U.S. should maintain its ability to defeat a Chinese fait accompli against Taiwan if necessary?
I absolutely would, but Senator, frankly, I'm not sure what a Chinese fait accompli in Taiwan is. If you're talking about a military invasion of Taiwan, crossing the straits, the Taiwan Straits, with a sizable military force to seize an island the size of Taiwan against the military that they have, with the population that they have, that's an extraordinarily complex and difficult operation, even if against an unopposed force. That's a very hard thing to do. But I can assure you that we have the capabilities if there were political decisions made in accordance with the Taiwan Relations Act and so on. But we do have military capabilities.
To defeat such an attempted invasion is what you're saying, General Milley. Got it. Good. Would you agree, Mr. Secretary, if I could just come back to you, would you agree that we need to be, when we think about deterring China, that we need to be as focused on deterring China in the next 3 to 5, 7 years as we are 10 to 15 years from now? And I'm asking this, the context for this is we've heard now from the outgoing PACOM commander, from the incoming PACOM commander. We just heard earlier this week from the former Deputy National Security Advisor that China is increasingly aggressive and that the window to deter that aggression may be shorter than we had thought. So thus my question, I mean, would you agree that we need to be focused on deterring them in the short to medium term, 3, 5, 7 years, including the longer term?
We do, and I would say that those 2 issues are not mutually exclusive, Senator. As you know, they complement each other. While we're developing a future capability, we certainly have to bridge to that capability, and that is absolutely our focus.
Great.
And Senator, I
would
say that's what the key here is: deterrence. We are in a condition of strategic great power competition. It needs to stay at competition. And deterrence is key to prevent it from going from competition to incident or competition to war.
Yeah, very good. I'm glad you mentioned that. And if I could just follow up on that, General, the adversary or competitor, in this case China, knowing that we have the ability to deter them, we have the ability to do what you said a minute ago, which is if they should choose military aggression, we have the ability, should we choose to deny that aggression, that is important for deterrence, is it not? Them knowing we have the ability.
In simple terms, deterrence is actually a very complex thing, but in simple terms, you have to have the capability. Your opponent has to know you have the capability. You've got to communicate that capability to your opponent. He has to know it. You have to communicate your will to use it if necessary, and both actors have to be rational. If all of those components are there, in simple terms, you'll be able to achieve a state of deterrence. Thus far, it's achieved.
Very good. Thank you for that. Mr. Secretary, let me just ask you in this context then about the Department's request for the Pacific Deterrence Initiative. In your request, you include, if I understand it correctly, $23 million for force design and posture improvements out of the $2.2 billion that's required. I'm trying to understand how providing our forces in the Pacific with just 1% of the funding they need for posture improvements to support those combat credible forward deterrent posture that we're talking about, how can we do that and say that we're going to maintain the ability to deter or deny a fait accompli?
Yeah, so Senator, I would flag for you just a couple of issues. The first issue is that, as I said earlier, that our intent is to make sure that with respect to the PDI investment, that we meet the congressional intent. And we believe that we have invested in a number of things that meets that intent. And we've offered, and we will come to meet with your staff and explain where the investments are to make sure that the language isn't confusing. The second thing is we've invested $5.1 billion in the PDI. The third thing I would flag for you is that much of what we're investing in terms of capability is really focused on our efforts to counter the challenge presented by China. And I would also say that when we speak of deterrence, we're not talking about just air, land, and sea. We're talking about using every capability across all domains to include cyber and space. We're talking about integrating the capabilities of our allies, which I believe is very, very important. And we're talking about using every lever that the United States government has available to it to, in fact, affect that deterrence.
Thank you very much. I've got some more questions for you on this, Mr. Secretary. I'll follow up with you in writing, but I appreciate the opportunity to engage with you on it. Thank you, General.
Thank you, Senator Hawley.